On today's show, the Hawks fall short in a big-time spot down in Orlando. We'll get into how it unfolded, where they came up short, and much more, and all of that is coming up.
You are Locked On Hawks, your daily Atlanta Hawks podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Hello, friends. Welcome to episode 1948 of the Locked On Hawks podcast. I am your host, Rowland, coming to you on a Tuesday evening into Wednesday. And I want to encourage you, as I always do at the top of the podcast, to make us your first listen each and every day. Check us out here at Locked On Hawks anywhere you find your podcast. That includes Apple and Spotify. That also includes YouTube. So please like this video as you are watching it, and tell your friends as well about the podcast. As you can see on YouTube, if you're watching or if you're listening, perhaps you can tell as well, I am still on the road. In fact, I'm in Orlando. I was in the building tonight for what became a loss for the Hawks against the Magic, 119-112. And a lot to get to here, but basically what I said coming into the game still stands true. This was the single biggest game of the year for the Hawks from an impact standpoint, and the closest thing that they've had so far to a playoff level kind of stakes of a game. And the Hawks just failed that test, basically. Now, they were underdogs in this game, according to our friends at FanDuel, about 4.5 points. I think if you polled the league, the Hawks on the road in Orlando would be an underdog. It's obviously a winnable game, to be sure. So it wasn't like the baseline was like they had to win this game like it was on Sunday against Utah when they played a bad team. But the Hawks did not play well enough to win in this game. That's the simple overall thing. And if you listen to the podcast regularly, you will know that I will go into a lot more detail than that. But the Hawks just fell short in this spot, and because of the loss, they are now not drawing dead for the 7 seed and the Southeast Division title, but certainly a very much of a long shot now. After this loss, the Hawks went from, one of the reasons why I said this is the most important game of the year so far for the Hawks was that if they had won it, they would have been in a pretty reasonable position when it came to the division race. And now with a loss, I'm looking at this via our friends at ESPN's BPI. The Hawks are down now to a 9% chance to win the division. It would have been 50-50 or so, if not better than that, had they won. So that kind of big of a swing here in April, and we'll get into how it unfolded here. But the first half was close, competitive. There was one run by Orlando late in the half to go up by 9 points at halftime, and Atlanta never led again. Now, they were in the game the entire way until the last couple of minutes, but certainly just no run came for the Hawks in this game. We'll kind of get into why that is now, but certainly want to welcome you to the podcast as always, and we'll dive in here with my big picture takeaways. And the first thing is, defensively, the Hawks were not good enough in this spot. So they had a 123 defensive rating in the game. That means they allowed more than 1.2 points per possession to an Orlando offense that's not exactly inspiring. Let's just say a bottom-tier offensive team for the season. They do have a lot of talent, to be fair, but poor shooting, all that stuff. And I would say there are two main issues that manifested. One of them was just a simple lack of size and physicality that the Hawks had in this game. Part of that is personnel-based, obviously, but the Magic had 31 free throw attempts in this game and 13 offensive rebounds. Those are very good numbers for them and bad numbers for the Hawks. Some of that, again, is unavoidable because the Hawks are missing Jalen Johnson and Clint Capella, even Larry Nance in this game. But they also played some lineups, I think, willingly that were probably a little bit too small for my liking. And again, there are no perfect solutions. The Hawks are very short-handed right now, talent-wise and personnel-wise, but I thought Orlando is a bad matchup for the Hawks in some respects right now because of that. And the preventing the free throws was a key that I mentioned multiple times on this podcast, in my Patreon work, in the Locked On Hawks newsletter. All that was there, and Orlando just relies on free throw creation, and that's been the case all year long. They rely on getting to the line. They really do. And I asked Quinn Snyder about this post-game. He mentioned a couple things about they could have done better, like not giving space initially on the catch and showing their hands and all these things. But the bottom line is they just lost the battle when it came to preventing free throw attempts. And also, on the defensive glass, they actually were not awful at times in this game. But if it wasn't Okongwu, there wasn't much else up there, which does make sense. Like, they are just a generally small team right now. And I'll get into this later on, but I saw people that were turning this into an Okongwu referendum, which I find to be incredibly silly. He was very good in this game. It was not his fault in the slightest, but the Hawks were limited personnel-wise, and that showed up in this game. Now, to be fair, the overall possession battle, like how many shots each team takes, was pretty even overall. But, and if that's all you know, like usually that's enough to beat Orlando, because Orlando is a bad, and I'm not just saying that, they're a bad shooting team. They're dead last in the league in three-point percentage and three-pointers per game, and they're bottom 5 in true shooting. So they're just a bad shooting team. But the Magic better than the Hawks shooting-wise in this game. They had 14 threes. They shot 40+% from three-point range in this game. And I'm not going to litigate the three-point variance thing again on the podcast. I'm just not going to do it today. But let's just say this, like, they made some tough ones, but they also had some breakdowns defensively. The defense was not good enough, point blank, in this game for Atlanta, and that was hard to say. So the plain way to say this is that if the Hawks face the Magic under what I would describe as like neutral conditions, like just the teams do what they usually do, personnel, all that stuff, Atlanta needs to really actively outshoot Orlando to win. Because if you just take away shooting, Orlando is the better team at everything else. Not everything else exactly, but if you put it all together in one pile when it comes to rebounding and free throw attempts and turnovers and all that stuff, if you just remove shooting from the equation, Orlando is the better team. So the Hawks have to win the shooting battle. And in this game, they actively lost it. Not just broke even, they lost the shooting battle. And that's going to be tough. If you said, okay, the Hawks are going to lose the shooting battle to Orlando, what are their chances to win? I would give the Hawks a very small chance. Not a 0% chance, but a very small chance to win if they're not going to shoot the ball well against Orlando, or at least hold Orlando to not shoot the ball well. And it didn't go well. And yes, they fouled too much. Defensively, it wasn't good enough. Even if you were to normalize the shooting up a little bit, it would still be true. They did foul too much. And by the way, I thought this game was very poorly officiated, but it doesn't explain it all. The Hawks just did not play well enough defensively. I think they all would kind of own that after the game as well. On offense, it was less poor, but not great either. They had a 115-ish offensive rating, and that includes 9 points in the final 90 seconds. Reduced that number a little bit in garbage time, so it was actually worse than that in the actual game flow. The Hawks shot the ball okay in this game. They were basically right at average in everything: 2-point shooting, 3-point shooting, free throw shooting, overall shooting. It was kind of just fine. But ball security was very poor. So there were two issues that I came into the game with, one on offense, one on defense. I mentioned defense before about the free throw prevention. On offense, it was ball security, and the Hawks committed 18 turnovers in this game. It got a little bit better as the game went along, but too many of those issues were self-created, self-described. Basically, the Hawks just like were kicking the ball around a little bit in this game and put themselves in some bad spots defensively. It's never as easy as separating offense and defense, and the Hawks were just pretty bad on offense in this game in addition to the defense. The shining star offensively was the offensive rebounding. They had a 40% offensive rebound rate in this game, and they had 31 second chance points. That's a season high for the Hawks in a game they lost by 7 points. But it's a shame they had to waste that in this game, but it was the main reason why the Hawks were just actually okay on offense instead of actually bad on offense, was that they were really, really, really good in that area. A lot of that was Okongwu, but it wasn't just him either. He had 7 of the rebounds on the glass. That was half of the Hawks off the rebounds. But Moget had a couple, Dyson had a couple, Man had a couple, etc. But that was just enough to kind of make things respectable instead of great. So I think the Hawks were better on offense than defense in this game, which is why I led with the offense. Defense as the kind of breakdown in this spot. But there were some big mistakes, unforced issues for the Hawks. They just kind of failed the test overall. It wasn't their worst game of the season by any means. They didn't play as badly as they played at times this year. But this is a spotlight game, a playoff level performance, and the Hawks were just not good enough to meet the moment in this game. Now they have a chance to kind of right that wrong maybe in a couple days, but I led with it. I'll say it again now. As far as like impact on the playoff race and the Hawks getting the 7 seed and winning the division and all those things, this is a big swing against that to lose this one. And I was so they're coming in. I have to say it again now. They got to go 3-0 the rest of the way and get some help from Orlando now to win the division. And, big picture, does that matter that much? No, but you want to have that advantage to have back-to-back home games if you need them, all those things in the play-in, etc. And the Hawks were just not good enough on this Tuesday evening. All right, everybody, more to come on this game when it comes to how that game flowed, my observations, my notes, plus my player evaluations, and more. And all that's coming up in just one moment. This show is sponsored by Betterhelp. Taking care of your mental health is just as important as taking care of your physical health, and traditional in-person therapy, though, can be really expensive, often ranging from $100 to $250 per session. And that is where Betterhelp comes in. With online therapy, you can get quality care at a price that makes sense, saving you time and saving you money in the process. Therapy is not just for life's toughest moments. It also help with everyday stress, learning how to set boundaries, and developing even positive coping skills as well. Having access to support when you need it can make a very big difference. Your well-being is worth it. Visit betterhelp.com/LockedOnNBA today. You get 10% off your first month with BetterHelp. That's BetterHelp. That's better, BetterHelp, betterhelp.com/LockedOnNBA. All right, before we dive into the actual game flow and look at the playoff race as it is right now, I've already alluded to this a little bit, but this loss was pretty impactful in the division/7 seed race. But the Hawks got a little bit of help today with a loss from the Bulls, which was very helpful to the Cavs. So at the moment, the Hawks are 2 games back on Orlando with 3 to play, and they lose the tiebreaker there, so they kind of have to go 3-0 and get some help. And the lead is down to 1 against both Chicago and Miami. The Hawks cannot screw around here, basically, or they risk falling out of the 7-8 into the 9-10 where you do not want to be. So they have some winnable games coming up, but start when nothing's given to them, and a big loss through that prism. On the bright side, a massive win for Sacramento on Monday in Detroit that might have clinched them a play-in berth by the time you actually hear this podcast. In fact, the Suns are losing by 25 points right now. If they lose, the Kings are officially in the play-in. Now, to be very, very clear, the Kings making the play-in is a good thing. It does not guarantee anything. So keep an eye on that. And we'll talk about that more later on in the podcast, maybe even today or maybe even later this week. But the Kings want to have a better record than the Bulls and the Heat. And that's an important thing. So root against Chicago and Miami, root for Sacramento, and the draft pick could be more and more possible or even likely coming to Atlanta at some point in time. All right, back to the game itself. The Hawks changed their lineup a little bit in this game after going with a one-game kind of tweak to start George Niang on Sunday. It was back to Mo Gay at the 4 in this game, although sparingly at the 4, he was the backup center as well. The Hawks kind of for the first time this year threaded the needle to have Mo play some with Okongwu and then also some be the backup center. All year long, Mo's been playing only the 4. That changed on Sunday. He played only the 5. And in this game, he played both. Now, he still didn't play very much, 18 minutes, but that made sense to me. I actually asked Okongwu about this post-game, but he was the primary on Banchero the entire game. And that's not a role that he even said this, not a role he's ever done for a full game the entire way. Like he was the guy on Banchero, and that left the Hawks with some weaknesses behind him because Onyeka is usually the back end anchor. And when you're defending Paulo Banchero, you're playing at the level, you're getting screened, all these things. And the Hawks started Mo Gay. I think part of that was why, to have someone behind the play to defend. They still ended up going pretty small after that, but anyway. The Hawks actually led this game 6-0 to begin the game, but then Atlanta went on a 19-7 overall run. A couple of really bad turnovers early on. A couple from Dyson that were really bad, actually, early in the game. The Hawks also missed 5 straight threes at that point in time. Rotationally, I have some questions about this game. One of them was that Zachary Richer ends this game with 16 minutes. Now, that's not enough. Also, the Hawks are plus 1 of those minutes, but he got auto-benched, basically. What I mean by that is a lot of coaches will bench players just automatically for foul trouble at certain points. And Zach had 2 fouls right away and got benched for a long, long time. Now, I don't like auto-benching. I think coaches at all levels are too worried about foul trouble all the time. I just covered the Final Four in San Antonio, and colleges, it's the same thing. Houston did this several times in the Final Four that was driving me crazy. Quinn is a conservative, I would say, on foul trouble stuff as well. But crucially, Richer averages 2 fouls a game, 2.0 fouls per game. So he doesn't really need to get benched for foul trouble. Like, he's not going to play 48 minutes anyway. He ended, by the way, spoiler alert, he ended the game with 3 fouls. So overcorrection there. Also, Mo Gay was benched for some foul trouble as well in this game. Now, on the bright side, they did have Trey playing with 3 fouls, which at least Quinn trusted him to play through that, and Trey didn't have a foul the rest of the game. But it was notable to me that they kind of were too conservative, I thought, with Richer. They went to a 4-wing group around a one point with Dyson, LeVert, Krejci, and Mann together. It's still pretty small, of course, but at least without Trey on the floor. But it was Niang first. They came back with Mo as the backup center. It was super physical throughout, and the Hawks just kept defaulting small. Like, even late in the game, they closed this game with LeVert and Mann at the forward spots. And that's just not going to work, I don't think. Now, granted, there is no perfect solution. Like, I think maybe you could have played more of Mo Gay, but I understand why you wouldn't want to when you're losing at the end of a game trying to score points. I thought it should have been more Richer, honestly. But, no great options, but I thought the Hawks just defaulted a little bit too small. And it was super physical, which definitely favors Orlando, generally speaking. Early in the game, Mann and Wendell Carter got into it a couple times. There were lots of chippiness, I would say. It was a playoff level, like intensity matchup. Both teams do not like each other very much, and they're going to see each other a lot in the next few days, potentially. The Hawks did get hot from 3-point range at one point late in the first quarter, with LeVert making 2 in a row and Niang making another one. The Hawks actually led this game by 1 point despite 7 turnovers in the first quarter, but they made 6 threes in the first, and then they only made, I believe, 8 more the rest of the game. So that was part of the problem. Like, it illustrates what I was saying earlier. If the Hawks would have made a lot of shots in this game, they could have maybe won it. And they were making shots in the first quarter to kind of overcome the rest of it. It was just that they stopped doing that at some point. Tons and tons of fouls in this game. Now, it got a little bit more even as the game went along, but the Hawks at one point had 16 fouls to 8 for Orlando. And Orlando is the more physical team. They definitely played the style of, we're going to foul you every possession and then hope they don't call them all. Which is, hey, it's not the first time that's happened, and it worked for them in this game. They are very physical, but I thought it was very, very weird that the Hawks were giving up that many more fouls than the Magic when they were not playing as physically as the Magic were. But that was weird. And I just didn't like the officiating overall. It was like not consistent, on both sides of the floor. I didn't think a problem. I don't want to go about that too much. I don't do that a lot in the podcast, but the Hawks had 9 in the first 13 minutes of the game. It was rough, I thought, officiating wise in this game. Okongwu played 40 minutes plus, even with a very brief 1-minute sojourn from Don Barlow. I think I actually asked Okongwu about this after the game. He didn't want to come out, and it was very obvious he didn't want to come out. I think the Hawks might have just thought he was tired, and they gave him a minute or so in the first half. But Barlow, that was his only time in the game because Mo was in foul trouble. It went to Don for 1 minute. It was non-consequential. It was a 0 break even on the scoreboard, and just notable there. Niang had a pretty bad error at the end of the first half with a tap out rebound that went right to the wrong spot for a layup for Orlando. That was part of a 10-0 run by the Magic that I mentioned earlier. That was kind of the big swing of the game in some respects. The Hawks were down only 1, 10-0 run, down 11, and then it was down by 9 at halftime. The shooting went away for the Hawks, and the real issue again was 12 turnovers in the first half. That's obviously tough. After halftime, they made some shots again. Ricochet had a great defensive rep against Moncaro, I thought, using his length really well to recover and then contested the apex to force a miss. He had a pull-up 3. They're back within 5. Like, it was all right. They're vibing again. And then it was back to 14, like, right away. Orlando just kept making shots. Like, I don't want to make it a whole thing, but they were 11 of 21 from 3 to begin the game. That's 55% or so. Like, what are you going to do if you're the Hawks at that point in time? And the Hawks only had 18 points in the first 10 minutes of the second half. And that's how you dig a hole that you couldn't get out of, basically. They played Okongwu the whole third quarter, had to play on the bench a little bit in the fourth. They kind of navigated those minutes okay. I thought Veet struggled defensively. He gave up a pretty immediate backdoor dunk early in the fourth quarter that was kind of harmful for the defense. They made some shots. Ricochet made 5 straight points. They got back within 6. There was a review mid-quarter in which Wendell Carter was actually called for a kind of an off-ball act that was a technical foul. But Trey was off the floor, and they actually had Ricochet shoot the free throw, which I was confused by because Niang was on the court. And Niang is a much better free throw shooter than Ricochet is, so don't know why that happened there. And he also missed it. If the Hawks lost this game by 1 point, I'd been very interested in what happened there. It got lost because it didn't matter in the end, but that was a bizarre choice, I thought, because Niang is like 10 percentage points or better above Ricochet in that area. Anyway, a small thing there, but still. And the game, I would say it swung on this to some degree. Now, I'm not saying they would have won the game. They probably wouldn't have. They were losing the game at that point in time. But the game kind of ended on the sequence where they had a nice lob, down by 8 points with like 5 minutes to go. Nice lob set up by Trey to Okongwu. Okongwu gets very obviously fouled, like very obviously. Seen the replay, even in real time, it's very obviously got fouled. It wasn't called. That's number one. Number two, he loses his mind, I think appropriately, but also probably didn't want to do that right then. Gets a technical foul. So he was right. He got fouled. He went a little bit too far, I guess. Got a T. That's a free point for Orlando, and then Orlando scores on the next possession. So it basically becomes the difference between a 6-point game potentially with 5 minutes to go or an 11-point game. And that difference is massive. So again, I think the Hawks probably would have lost anyway, but that was when the game was like out of hand. As soon as that happened, you're down 11. It's going away from you, and they never got back, basically. So that was tough. Okongwu was great in this game. I'm not picking on him by any means, but that was kind of where the game fell short and the end of that. So we'll get into how the individual players played in a second. But overall, again, just a two-way, two-side of the floor shortcoming for the Hawks in this game. And the starters, Orlando starting lineup basically was just won the game for them in this game. So we'll get into all that in a second and much more coming up in a moment. This show is brought to you by Robinhood Gold. With Robinhood Gold, you can now enjoy a VIP treatment, receiving a 3% IRA match on retirement contributions. The privileges of the very privileged are no longer exclusive. With Robinhood Gold, your annual IRA contributions are boosted by 3%. Plus, you also get 4% APY on your cash in non-retirement accounts. That is over 8 times the national savings average. The perks of the high net worth are now available for any net worth. The new gold standard is here with Robinhood Gold. To receive your 3% boost on annual IRA contributions, sign up at robinhood.com/gold. Investing involves risk. Rates subject to change. 3% match requires Robinhood Gold at $5 a month for 1 year for first match. Must keep funds in IRA for 5 years. Go to robinhood.com/boost. Over 8 times the national average savings account interest rate claims based on data from the NFDIC as of November 18th, 2024. Robinhood Gold LLC member SIPC. The membership is offered by Robinhood Gold LLC. All right, so the overall player evaluations in this game. 9 guys really appeared. Dom played 1 minute. He kind of a zero there. No issues there. Veet Krejci played the least 15 minutes. That was probably the right choice, I thought, to some degree. I thought Veet was kind of a fish out of water. Made 1 3, but didn't defensively was not great. Had a turnover that was pretty rough, and then gave up a couple backdoor plays defensively. I think just physicality for Veet in this matchup is tough. Like with Trey off the floor, I get it, but Veet plus Trey against Orlando is kind of asking for it to some degree, and he had a rough night. I thought Terrence Mann was pretty bad in this game and played too much, honestly. Not just this, but also he was 0-5 from the floor, 0-4 from 3, so 0 points in 29 minutes. Did have 5 assists, which is nice, but a couple just like pretty bad mistakes defensively, 3 turnovers. Like, I don't think he was a disaster individually, but like the lack of juice that he brought offensively and then defensively, he's just kind of undersized against either Franz or Paolo, just some mistakes. I don't think he was like a total disaster, but was not very good, I didn't think. Niang, 9 points on 10 shots. Tough to overcome that for him. 3 fouls, two turnovers. Like, I thought he was definitely below average, not very good in this game. He's got to make shots. That's the thing about George. Like, it's funny. The day the Hawks made this trade, I pointed this out on the podcast. Like, there will be nights when Hawks fans hate George Niang. And it's because when it doesn't look good, it looks real bad. It's like Capella in some respects, different styles, but because of George's lack of burst athletically, to be fair, if shots are not going in, it's going to get picked on. And that happened again in this game. So he didn't make shots, a couple of mistakes that were rough. And then defensively, you put him and Veet in action or him and Trey in action, and it's kind of tough. LeVert was pretty good, I thought, actually. 13 points, 6 rebounds for Karras. Was minus 11 in the game. Not really his fault. 2 of 5 from 2-point range, 2 of 6 from 3. I thought he was probably their best bench guy overall, but wasn't like his best game either. Moge, 18 minutes, 6 points, 5 rebounds, 2 assists, had a steal. Did have 4 fouls. It is what it is. He was not particularly great offensively, I would say. Limited there, but was crashing the glass. Like, did a good job with his activity. I thought Mo played totally fine in this game. Probably should have played a little bit more. Again, the fouls were a little bit too conservative for my liking, but I thought it was the right choice to start him, and that kind of worked, honestly, in both halves. It's everything else, when they were smaller, it didn't really work. Risha Shea, I mentioned before, I thought he played way too little in this game. He wasn't great. A couple nice flashes along the way, just no rhythm at all. And I thought he should have played more in the second half when he was definitely playing better and then also was fresh. Like, you could see he has legs because he didn't play in the first half and all those things. So +1 in his minutes. That's not really about him only, but I thought he was underutilized in this game. Dyson Daniels, 15 points, 5 rebounds, 3 assists for Dyson. Had his usual stock activity with 3 of those. He was 7 of 10 on 2s, 0 of 2 from 3. I thought he had 4 turnovers, which is the most on the team. Had some bad ones. I don't think it was a good Dyson game overall. Like, I think he did a pretty good job overall on Franz. Like, he held Franz to 22 points on 22 shooting possessions. That's actually really good. And he was the primary on Franz the entire game. So that was a feather in his cap, I thought. But I thought offensively, it was one of his shakier games, other than the finishing. He did a good job getting to the paint a couple times and finishing around the rim, but not his best game overall. Trae Young, 28 points, 10 assists, 3 turnovers for Trae. Like, you'll take that all day long. He was efficient enough. 28 points on 23 shooting possessions is pretty solid for him. The assists were there. I think defensively, he struggled, and that's a bad spot at times against Orlando because there's nowhere to put him. Obviously, when they're starting Corey Joseph, it's fine. But when they go to a bigger lineup, when they're playing, someone like, and even Anthony Black is just probably a little bit too big for Trey to deal with. But I thought Trey offensively was very good. He was not the problem there at all. And then defensively, it was like just his normal self mostly. And then Okongwu was the star of the game for the Hawks. Honestly, 30 points, 14 rebounds, 4 assists. He actually tied his career high at 30 points. Had a new career high with 4 threes in this game and the rebounds. So like he was far, far, far from the problem in this game. Like one way of telling me that you don't really pay attention closely is telling me that he's the problem in this game. I think it's because of the height, and I get that. It's never going to go away. It drives me crazy. Every game, basically, that there's someone I mentioned saying the Hawks have to get a new center because he's too short. It is what it is, but that was not the problem in this game. Number one, he was asked to play basically a non-center role defensively the entire game, guarding Paolo Banchero, screen navigating, all those things. And then offensively, he was a monster in this game. 30 points, 7 offensive rebounds, like crashing. They did a better job with him on the floor than off the floor, defensive rebounding wise. Like, he's done a good job for a while. He's been playing really well for a while. 40 minutes, like he was really good in this game. He was the only guy on the court for the Hawks that I would say was genuinely very, very good. Trey, like, it's a credit to Trey that a 28-10 game is like just fine for him. Like he was just like pretty good to fine. I thought Okongwu was the only guy of the 9 who played who I thought was like genuinely good in this game. So there you go. I'll leave it there for now. But one to forget, but also you can't forget it because it was an important game for the Hawks and a challenge coming up. So here's the thing. If the Hawks want to at least guarantee themselves to be in the 8-9 game, they have to win out. Sorry, to be in the 7-8 game, they have to win out. Now, I think 2 wins would probably be enough based on the schedule, but probably not definitely. If the Hawks want to guarantee themselves to be in the 7-8 game, they got to go 3-0 the rest of the way. Now, that's doable. And the 2 games before the Orlando season finale on Sunday are of a softer variety of the schedule. But as we've said all year long, this is a team that could lose to anybody or beat anybody, honestly. They play Brooklyn on Thursday and then Philly on Friday. It's a back-to-back. It's short travel, but it is travel. And that's not like easy. Obviously, they are better than the Nets. They're better than the Sixers, but you got to show up and you got to win. And then we'll see. At that point in time, it is possible and maybe even likely at this point that Orlando may have clinched the 7 seed before they come to Atlanta on Sunday. If that happens, you might get a situation where you're facing a team that has nothing to play for. TBD. I'll cover that in depth on the shows on Thursday and Friday. But in the meantime, the Hawks need to win some games. The only way, and Quinn said this too, like everyone said it after the game, Trey said the same thing after the game, you got to go out and win. That's simply put. And there are no excuses. Like I can certainly explain away a road loss to Orlando. I thought the Hawks did not play very well tonight, but it wasn't like offensive to me the way they played, if that makes sense. You go out and lose to Brooklyn, you go out and lose to Philly with nothing to play for when you have something to play for in April, and that's going to be less excusable. So we'll see what happens. But Thursday is the next one on the agenda for the Hawks in Brooklyn, and I will have podcasts after those games as usual. By the way, before I sign off, I should also tell you this. You can stay in the know with Locked On Hawks podcast newsletter. Yes, a newsletter for this podcast. I get a chance to win awesome prizes if you subscribe. There are 3 or 4 awesome prizes. The headliner is a $2,500 Best Buy gift card to upgrade your sports cave setup as well. But there's a Gametime gift card as well, Fanatics gift card. Sign up between April 7th and April 30th to be entered in to win that drawing for awesome swag. And subscribe now for free to the Locked On Hawks podcast newsletter and stay ahead as the season unfolds. One more time, subscribe today, and the link is available in the description below to enter that contest. All right, everybody, that's all I have on today's podcast. Please subscribe to the show and also to the newsletter, but especially to the show, Apple, Spotify, YouTube, etc. Hopefully I can get an hour or 2 of sleep before I fly home on Wednesday morning from a interesting game here in Orlando. But to support the podcast, again, please subscribe, listen, watch, rate, review, tell your friends as well. Help us to spread the word about the podcast. And as a PSA, when the season ends, whatever that may be, we don't end the podcast. The podcast goes all summer long and all fall long and all winter long, et cetera, et cetera. It's not 24 hours a day, but 12 months a year. Every week of the season, you'll have podcast content in this space. So go ahead and subscribe to the podcast. Also follow us on social media at Locked On Hawks, and follow my Patreon work if you'd like to at patreon.com/BT Rowland. All right, everybody. Thanks for listening as always, and we'll see you later on this week.